Welcome to The Read Along,
a mini book club for your ears.
I'm your host, Scott.
I'm your other host, Anita.
And join us on a journey through a good book,
one chapter at a time.
Do you like talking about movies? Do you like talking about mediocre movies? Do you like talking about how you could have fixed mediocre movies? Well, I certainly do, and you can listen to me, Scott C. Bourgeois, along with my co-hosts Greg Beaver and Liam Creswick, as we give our notes, and I have some notes. You can follow it now on your podcatcher of choice or support it by visiting patreon.com/IHaveSomeNotes.
Have to forgive by code.
Yeah, both of us are suffering through head colds at the moment, which I'm pretty sure our loving daughter brought into the house.
Oh, probably.
Because she was, vaguely sick, mildly sick for 3 days.
Snorky. She was real snorky.
Yeah, and again, all of 3 days. And now for a week, Anita and I have been suffering through it. Because, of course, little kids, they bring stuff in and they bounce back really quick. Mm-hmm. And as full-grown adults, we'll have these colds for the next month.
A mild cold, and I'm like, oh, God. Oh.
Yeah.
It's the worst.
It's the way it is. So if we both sound a little phlegmy today,
yeah,
that is the reason.
If I sound like I have a coded by doze, it's because I do.
Yeah.
I have a cold right here in my nose.
You can't see, but she is pointing at her nose.
I'm pointing at my nose. That's where the cold is.
That is where the cold lives. That's right.
We should carry on and talk about our book now.
Sure.
Okay.
Okay, so we'll start with a brief recap of our previous chapter. Chapter 8, Strength, in which 13 meets the next portrait on her list of targets, and it does not go well.
And gets beat up, basically.
Beat up real bad.
Yep.
Right up until Mitosis shows up, and 13 manages to sneak away while Mitosis takes off with the survivor portrait, and gets picked up by a cab being driven by Marie, the seamstress of all people.
Of all people.
And dropped off back at Lulabelle, the artist's place.
How convenient.
Lulabelle tries to nurse 13 a little bit back into health.
Which is very kind.
And then gets pulled into a bathtub in a slightly ambiguous ending that leads us directly into Chapter 9, The Hermit of 13 Ways to Kill Lulabelle Rock by Maud Woolf. The artist does not die at this time.
No. So that pull-in was, as we speculated, for sexy times.
Yeah.
At least kissy times.
Indeed. We arrive in Chapter 9 in the afterglow of some intimacy between 13 and the artist.
I can only assume.
Yeah.
Because we actually start our chapter with a weird dream.
Yeah.
So, portraits dream, and they dream weird.
Well, in this case, it's not necessarily a dream, per se.
What? 13 is dreaming that she's in a rainforest, watching raindrops, talking to a tiger with black wings, whose name is Simon.
Yeah.
That's a weird dream.
But also, that's not a random dream tiger. That is the magician.
Well, yeah, but still, as a tiger with black wings.
Well, yeah, because he's in, his spirit form.
In a rainforest.
And we know it's the magician because of the conversation they have.
Yeah.
Where 13's even like, hey, did you like the movie? And he's like, no, it was awful.
Right? She knows him, but he's a tiger.
Well, because he's arrived in her dream. It's a dream sending, which lends credence to the fact that maybe actually magic.
Maybe.
Or something akin to.
Who knows? This book is going places.
Yeah. Kind of half dream and kind of half conversation with our magician friend is what's going on here.
Good times, either way. A sharp turn from where we finished the chapter, right? To where we started the chapter. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but this is also not the first time that 13 has had a dream.
No, but this one was just weird.
Well, because a wizard was in it.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway.
13 awakens in bed with the artist.
Yeah.
We are confirmed that there was definitely some kissing last night, if nothing else.
If nothing else.
The implication is probably more than that.
Probably.
The artist is like, we should get some breakfast.
Except it's noon.
Yeah. And also, what do you like? And the only thing 13 can think of off the top of her head is, I like sarsaparilla ice cream. So they determine they're going to just order everything.
Yeah, this is the artist's idea. They order from like 10 different places. And just all this food just arrives.
At the same time, actually.
Yeah, very amusing.
So that they can sample a whole bunch of stuff. And then it kind of starts to turn into a game as well, where they're like, oh, I like this. No, I don't like this. But I do like that.
This fun game of how are we different?
Yeah, because one of the things that 13 has discovered in this chapter is that she likes that she and the artist are not the same.
Yes.
Despite the fact that they are the same.
It's sort of been this underlying thought all the way through the book, up until this point, of 13 trying to feel different and noticing when things are different from Lulabelle.
Which is quite a departure from at first when, in some of the earlier chapters, her knee-jerk reaction was just, well, this is what Lulabelle would do.
Yeah.
This is how Lulabelle would act. This is what Lulabelle would look like.
And the further she gets from Lulabelle, the more fascinating she finds it.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
And the more herself she feels.
Yeah.
And that is part of the joy of discovery here with the artist. And also, like, she feels self-conscious about it at first when she first brings it up. Like, I like that I'm different than you. And she's worried that the artist will be like hurt or offended by that. But the artist is actually really reciprocates that.
Yeah, she's like, yeah, me too. It's like, aw.
This also does bring up the question of the weird sort of narcissism of this, because the artist and 13 are both clones of Lulabelle.
Yeah, basically.
They are both the same, but different.
But obviously different.
And so that does bring up the question of, is 13 falling in love with herself? Is she falling in love with a different person? And the line is a little blurry.
It's a lot blurry, if you ask me.
Yeah.
Because it's basically another version of herself, but she is also not herself.
They're both versions of Lulabelle.
Yeah. They're different versions of Lulabelle, so neither of them are the original, so you expect them to be different. But they also come from the same source, so yeah, it's this weird blurry line of, is it narcissism or not?
Yeah. It's hard to say.
It is.
Because on the one hand, as I say, they are both technically clones of the same person, but they are also different people now.
Yeah.
Because they've forked off of that original, and now they are individuals.
Yeah. Our book clubby episode on this is going to be so book clubby.
And they do recognize and celebrate the differences that they have, as much as they seem to be attracted to the similarities. So, like, it's hard to say.
I know.
Yeah.
But it's actually very sweet.
Kinda.
How 13 feels about the artist, because she has this wonderful comment about how she could chase her forever, knowing full well that she is supposed to kill her, but she doesn't want to, and so she would be willing to chase her forever to keep her around.
Yeah.
And there was something really sweet underneath all of that.
I feel compelled to fulfill my purpose, which does involve killing you, but we could maybe just delay it forever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, I will hunt you down and let you go over and over again so that we can just keep going.
And they would keep going, apparently, forever.
Well,
because we learn a little bit more about portraits in this chapter.
Yes.
Because 13 has a chance to actually talk to the artist. I'll just drop this in right here. Also asks the artist, are you the longest lasting portrait of Lulabelle? Were you the first? Because Lulabelle suggested that to me. The artist doesn't get a chance to answer that, so that mystery is continuing to linger. But we do learn a little bit more about the politics of portraits, how long portraits last, and just a little bit more of the, I'm going to put it in quotes here, science behind it.
Yes.
So first off, the artist is like, in theory, we're perpetual. We will continue to exist as we are effectively forever. The civilization could collapse, and the only thing left would be like the portraits of dead celebrities existing in a new weird civilization. And then it's like, I'm inspired by that. Pass me some paper.
Write that down.
The only way to effectively end them is through retirement, for them to be killed, basically.
Yeah.
Artificially terminated. And apparently it is legal to do so, partly because of some shenanigans that some celebrity tried to do in his estate several years earlier.
Yeah.
He was dying. He made a couple portraits of himself and then bequeathed everything to them so that he could, after a fashion, live forever.
Yeah.
And his family got real upset about that. And so they went to court, and the law was changed so that when a person dies, their portraits have to be taken
Retired,
care of
yeah.
too. Which explains earlier on why Mitosis had a Ginger Rogers in their truck.
Yes.
Because Ginger
She is
Rogers is dead.
illegal.
Yeah, that would have been an illegal portrait. So that's part of the legality. And that brings up some questions about if the real Lulabelle is dead. And we have posited that might be the case. This whole situation could be a weird gray legal area.
Maybe?
Yeah.
Like, is that the point of 13?
Hard to say.
Right? Like, was she created for this retirement because Lulabelle, like, is going to or has died? Like, I don't know.
Because we've suggested that there's the hint that the real Lulabelle, wink, is actually not.
Right.
But
we don't know.
We don't know that for sure. And she could be trying to wipe out all the portraits just to try to eliminate evidence.
Maybe.
It's possible.
Maybe. We don't know. We just don't know.
The other interesting thing that we learn about portraits is exactly how the imprinting works. Because...
Imprinting/programming.
Yeah. Apparently when a portrait gets decanted, I guess, they basically have a sit down and they're given all of their like core programming within the first like 40, 45 minutes of
Something
activation.
Like that, yeah.
The artist even asks, like, did you hear a timer go off during your initial conversation with Lulabelle? And 13's like, oh, yeah, I did. I didn't even think anything of it at the time. And she did see Lulabelle drop a piece of paper with some key information on it, like trust the engineer, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Which she didn't even remember talking to Lulabelle about because she was still coming into awareness at that time.
Yep.
And she realizes that was her getting imprinted with her task.
Yeah.
And apparently this is true for all of the portraits. The artist kind of came to consciousness while in the back of a car with Lulabelle being driven to her loft.
Yep.
And had this weird existential few weeks where she was afraid to do anything.
Yeah,
except
where she just
be
sort
in
of
bed.
stared at her supplies.
Because she didn't know what to do or how to do it. She only knew that she was supposed to create.
Yeah. I imagine then that her instructions were just really vague.
Well, that seems to be the case with all of them, really, because we also learned that the strength portrait from last chapter
Belle,
was,
right?
Yeah, Belle was only given the task of exist and took that like to heart as I need to survive at all costs.
Yes, I need to continue to exist.
Which is why she fought so hard against 13 trying to nullify her.
Which now makes sense.
Which very much makes sense, yeah. So it does seem like Lulabelle's instructions to most of her portraits have been incredibly vague. And they've had to kind of interpret them in their own ways.
Yeah.
Or figure them out on their own with very little instruction, which is kind of neglectful.
A little bit. And when you think back, it makes a lot of sense, right? Number 12, who was made for brunch, who then didn't know what to do with herself.
Yeah. Sat at a bus stop for several
2 days.
days.
Yeah. Because her instructions were like, go for brunch.
Go for brunch.
And then she did that. And then that was it.
Yeah.
Like, if you think back, you can relate to all of them being like, okay, well, they are clearly just working with what they've got, instruction-wise.
Which is the case with 13 as well.
Yeah.
13 was told, kill all my other portraits, given a binder, and sent out the door.
Basically.
Yeah.
And she is now figuring it out.
And has to figure it out a bit more now, because she also lost her gun in her last encounter.
Yeah.
And doesn't know how she's going to retire the other portraits without it.
Let's talk about this other portrait.
Yeah.
So I feel like we're there now.
13 parts ways with the artist again, without once again murdering her, because she has feelings.
She's saving the artist for last, and I don't know if she's going to go through with it at this point.
We'll have to wait and see.
Well, yeah.
It would be sad if she did. There's a through line that she has when talking with the artist here, when the artist is talking about the creative process, about how when she starts a task, she doesn't give up. She sees it through, no matter how bad the end result might be.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's kind of the same with 13.
Yeah.
And that's setting us up for a bit of a gut punch in the final chapters.
Maybe.
But we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah.
At any rate, she does go out to basically take on the next portrait, who is Lulabelle's social media manager.
Yeah.
Lulabelle created a Lulabelle whose job is just to be terminally online, posting on Instagram and Facebook and all that.
Well, and if you think about it, it makes sense. Who better to manage Lulabelle's social media than Lulabelle?
Yep.
Right? Because it'll always sound like her.
Yep.
So this one at least makes sense.
Oh, for sure.
Even if it's, kind of cruel to do to someone.
So she heads over to social Lulabelle's place in a part of town that she's she doesn't even have Lulabelle's memories of ever having been in.
No, and it's very sketchy seeming.
Heads up to the apartment, finds the doors all like askew and unlocked, and comes in, and the Lulabelle portrait A, was clearly expecting her, and B, isn't there immediately.
Yeah.
In a way that she can find. The cat is there. There's some letters on the counter addressed to some of the neighbors, but also one just marked 13.
13.
And 13 opens it, and it is addressed to her, and it's basically this Lulabelle's last will and testament, essentially. I knew you were coming. I decided to make this easy for you. Don't worry about the cats. The neighbors will take care of them. Please deliver these last few messages. I've put together some bots that will be able to post as Lulabelle indefinitely until someone can come and take over. But here's all the instructions for how to access it anyway. And sure enough, the portrait has thrown herself out the window.
Yeah. Yeah. So
she took Party Belle's way out and made it easy. And indeed, from the sounds of it, may have been thankful for the release, much in the same way Party Belle was.
Yeah, kind of. I found it interesting that this particular Lulabelle decided to take matters into her own hands.
Well, much like Party Belle went out on her own terms.
No, but well before 13 got there.
Yeah.
Right? Like, Party Belle didn't know it was coming, and when 13 arrived, she was like, yeah, okay. Yeah, I'm into it.
Yep.
I'll do it. Yes, what a relief. But, I don't know, the word has gotten around among all these portraits.
Well, indeed, the social Belle here, online Belle, I don't know what to name her, she specifically refers to 13 in her letter as Death and herself as the Hermit.
Yeah.
Because she's spoken to the artist and was filled in on the whole tarot thing.
Yeah, knew about the cards.
Yeah.
This book is getting very book clubby.
Yeah, the word's getting around. Partly because the artist has been talking to people. But Lulabelle does take the Hermit's leaving behind the computer information as an offer to kind of kill Lulabelle online. Because she gives her the tools to shut it down. Despite the fact that Lulabelle very specifically in her binder is like, number one, be nice to this one. She's been through a lot because being online all the time.
Yeah, being online sucks.
And number two, leave the computer. I have a social media manager coming to take over, basically. 13 does consider that this is maybe an offer to kind of like kill what's left of this Lulabelle in the form of these bots, but decides not to.
Well, this is the interesting thing to me, is that 13 was left the password, but no real instructions beyond that. So,
and much like any other vague instruction, has to interpret it.
Yeah, it became a choice, right? Like, I'm leaving you this option, and if you want to take it, you're going to have to work for it, right? I'm not going to make it super easy for you. I will make it accessible to you.
Yeah.
Not the same thing. I'm not entirely sure what that means.
Well,
and I'm curious to know.
Because there's a certain way to look at the bots as an extension of this Lulabelle, right? She continues to live online after a fashion. So 13 has to interpret, does that count as her being dead, her physical body being dead, or her online presence?
Yeah.
Does that count as her being dead? And she ultimately makes the call like, no, she's dead enough. She can continue to exist online.
The line 13 uses is, I'll let her live for now.
Yeah, she can continue to live online for now.
Yeah.
Even if her physical body is dead.
And I'm guessing that's because, at least to 13, the real Lulabelle still exists. And so it's okay for her to have an online presence, even if it's bots.
Or she's just interpreting it as the portrait is dead, even if she continues to exist in some other form.
Yeah?
That's good enough for me. That satisfies my programming. Kindness.
Exactly. I think it's getting harder for 13 to kill these portraits because it hasn't been straight up murder for a couple now.
Yeah. Well, she didn't at all manage to kill Belle, the survivor.
Belle got taken away. We don't even know if Belle's around.
Indeed.
Still. Like, we don't know that she's gone.
Although the artist is confident that she'll probably survive.
Yeah.
Because that's her entire purpose.
Prudence was killed as an act of self-defense.
Yep.
And this hermit...
Much like Party Belle.
Yeah.
Self-terminated.
Self-terminated. Without a prompting.
Well, a little bit of prompting. She was warned that her executioner was coming and made the decision to, like...
Go out on her own terms.
Yeah. Yeah. Make preparations, go out on our own terms, and no hard feelings.
No. Do you want to talk about the poem?
Sure. Probably also from the artist.
Probably. Again, it's like on the edge of being profound, but it wasn't.
Which is why I'm pretty sure it came from the artist.
Right?
Yeah.
Like trying so hard to be good at something and just not there yet. it was there. Like, there's all these pieces of the artist cropping up all over the place, but I don't know if it's specifically the artist or if it's like something inside Lulabelle that comes out of all of them. I don't know. I feel like there's so much to unpack in this book.
Well, maybe we'll be able to unpack a little bit more of it as we move into chapter 10, The Wheel of Fortune, which you'll want to read up on in time for next week. In the meantime, of course, as always, you give us a little rating and review.
We appreciate those.
We do. We also appreciate chatting with you online.
Absolutely. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, Goodreads, and Blue Sky.
Yes.
Yes, we are at the Read Along on most of them.
You can also send us an email.
Oh, please do. You can find us at thereadalong@gmail.com.
And with that said, as always, we love you very much, and we'll see you next time.
What the Wheel of Fortune means.
Thank you for joining us on The Read Along with your hosts, Anita and Scott Bourgeois. All Read Along music is by Kevin MacLeod at Incompetech.com. Cover art is by Aaron Beaver. Be sure to join us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at The Read Along, and check out our group on Goodreads.com.